I'm Bob Grove, and I'm speaking with Howie Hawkins, Chris King, Steve Melton, Karyn Strickler, Jim Turner, and Winston Apple about the state of U.S. climate policy. So how is the Biden administration doing? What climate actions has it taken in its first 60, 90 days, and how effective do you think its behavior is being? Winston, let's start with you, former member of the DNC, your man. How's he doing?
My man was Bernie Sanders, but I will say that I was very disappointed on February 29th and on Super Tuesday when what appeared to be the momentum for Bernie went away very quickly, and it became obvious very quickly that Joe Biden was going to be the Democratic nominee. Having said that, I will say that from that point to this, my opinion of Joe Biden, especially on the climate, but on other issues as well, has improved steadily. And I have a feeling, I know he's saying all the right things. I also have been haunted for years by a quote from Benjamin Franklin, that well done is better than well said. And particularly with regard to global warming and the climate crisis, what we say doesn't matter at all, except in terms of rallying support among voters. So the Democrats are going to be judged over the next year and a half by what they do. And I think he's done a lot with executive actions. I'm also impressed that a lot of what needs to be done is very expensive. The federal government is the only entity among the levels of government that has the power to create money, as we've seen in response to the pandemic. They can literally write checks or make direct deposits to anyone they want in any amounts they want. So I'm very hopeful that the federal government will step up. I think that it's going to be hard because I don't sense any readiness to get rid of the filibuster. I think with Bernie as the budget chair, we've got a break in that there's a lot that can be done with reconciliation. And I hope that they take full advantage of that. But even with reconciliation, a single Democratic senator with the Republicans pretty much united in opposition to a Green New Deal, all it takes is one Democratic senator, and I'm thinking Joe Manchin, and nothing happens. I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope they push some things through because we need them to, and if they don't, we could lose control of one house or the other or both in 2022, and the opportunity's gone.
Thanks, Winston. Stephen, Citizens Climate Lobby, how do you think Biden's done in his first 60,
so
90
far,
days?
I think he's done great. Whether he's a B student or an A student, I don't care. He's the best student we've got in the position right now. And so let's wish him well. Yeah, he's made some executive decisions and executive actions, which I think have been very salutary toward our cause. But the real question is what kind of legislation is going to come out of this Congress. And the reality is that the Democrats haven't decided what bill they're going to get behind. There's sort of three different ideas. One is the regulatory action, the climate leadership and energy action for our nation future plan that came out 2 days ago proposed by some Democrats is a regulatory plan, starting mainly with the energy industry and moving into housing and some other things. There's other plans for incentive, like let's spend billions and trillions of dollars, to incentivize new technologies. But I think that, we've already spent those trillions of dollars. So I'm not sure that that's going to be a big part of it. The other thing, and this is what CCL, my organization, and a lot of people around the world, scientists, economists, the US Chamber of Commerce, think we need to do is we need to put a price on carbon and an escalating price on carbon so that alternatives become more attractive and fossil fuels become used less over time. And we think that this can do it. The international or the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change believes this is an integral part of the solution. And so we still favor a carbon price, and there's going to be some carbon price bills come out in the next few weeks. So, you know, we cannot let the perfect, in our viewpoint, become the enemy of the good. There's a lot of good that can be done, and it's going to have to be done on a bipartisan fashion because that's the reality of legislation in the United States right now. And so we need to make sure that we can get a bill that can pass so we can begin to develop momentum that we can build upon in the future. There's no bill that's going to be passed in this Congress which is going to be the final bill which is going to solve this problem forever. That isn't going to happen. So the important thing is to start getting momentum, meaningful bills, meaningful momentum that will start moving us and the rest of the world in the right direction.
Thanks, Stephen. Chris, you kind of bring a unique perspective. I mean, you're as a brigadier general, I mean, you got contacts all around the world and you're looking at the national security impacts of climate. How's Biden doing in that arena?
Well, again, I guess I'm the divine optimist of the group here, because I see a very positive direction that we're taking right now. Like I said before, Jenna McCarthy as the president's climate advisor, great choice, good background. The Honorable John Kerry as a special presidential envoy on climate. Tuesday, he spoke at the UN Security Council. Science is screaming at us concerning the security implications of climate change, to quote John Kerry. So we're going back into leadership, which we should have been doing all along. We've rejoined the climate change accord, the Paris Accord. We've got to set the standards right that we're going to try to pursue on that again, because we set the standards basically 10 years ago, and we didn't do anything about it for the last 4 years. So we've got that work to do. But the new Secretary of Interior and 50 top executives have already been appointed. So what I see is inside the power of the executive branch, he's putting people in place and making changes that he can make immediately with executive order and rescinding bad guidance and putting new guidance in place to block the raping of our national treasures, which is our public lands. All of those are very positive things that he can do immediately, and he's pursuing those kinds of things right now. Jim raised his hand, so he's got some other ideas about those. It's not perfect yet, but put the right people on the bus to begin the goal. And then we've already done some things about getting the right people off the bus too. I'll relent to Jim now.
Thank you. The appointment of Janet Yellen as Treasury Secretary makes it look likely that financial regulation may be used to help the climate. We can look for requirements that financial statements must disclose climate risk, including the risk of stranded assets as fossil fuel reserves lose their value. But many investors don't pay much attention to such disclosures, so more may be needed. It's been suggested that the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act empowers the Treasury Department, the Federal Reserve, and the SEC to inhibit or prohibit investment in fossil fuels and related infrastructure such as pipelines. A January report has argued that climate risk may be grounds for financial regulators to require bank holding companies, insurers, and asset managers to divest from companies that engage in deforestation or cause high emissions. So that could, I've been a fan of divestment for years, and I really would like to see the regulators get on that bandwagon.
Howie, you actually ran against Biden, and obviously the Green Party is kind of the gold standard for environmental issues. But setting that aside, how do you think Biden's doing?
Well, he's doing the positive things that we could have expected, but as I've been saying, it's not enough. He stopped the Keystone XL, which was not a surprise, but we still got the Dakota Access Pipeline, Enbridge Line 3, which he could stop. And if we build out this fossil fuel infrastructure, we get locked into decades more of burning, in this case, natural gas or Alberta tar sands oil. So I think that's an area where the climate movement, basically defending ourselves, can make advances. It's good we got back into the Paris Climate Agreement. The question now is, what are we going to do with it? The pledges of the countries, as it now stands, don't get us below or keep us below 2 degrees Celsius rise in global warming. In fact, we're going to blow right through that. And the history of US involvement in these negotiations has not been good. So is that going to change? I think it's good that he's issued a number of executive orders repealing a lot of the damage Trump did and adding some regulations that were just mentioned. That's good. But as somebody mentioned earlier, I think the key is the filibuster. I mean, the legislation, I listened to what Stephen said. I say all of the above. We need stronger regulation. We need more public investment, and we need a carbon fee. But getting that through the Senate is going to require the filibuster to be repealed. And unfortunately, I haven't seen Biden and Harris really make that an issue. I mean, the reports we're getting is they're kind of resigned to the fact that they're not going to be able to get rid of the filibuster, which I think is going to cripple them. And as somebody also mentioned, if they don't get things done in the next 2 years, they may have no support in the House and the Senate after 2022.
Thanks, Howie. Karyn, we've got about 60 seconds left. You said you'd done a grade card in Biden and you were adjusting that. So now that you're into his first 30, 60, 90 days, how do you think he's doing?
Well, as Winston said, we endorsed Bernie Sanders. And as Stephen said, and Howie said, we support a fee on carbon pollution. And we think that's critically important piece, not the be all end all. But on his climate day, and that's a bit emblematic of the problem, every day should be climate day. Joe Biden did end fossil fuel subsidies. He paused new drilling and he's reviewing existing drilling of oil and gas leases on public land. As Howie said, he already rejoined the Paris Agreement, but that's inadequate in and of itself. These are good things to start with, to overcome the climate zero who preceded Biden in office, but he's got to do more. And ultimately, as I think it was Howie who also said, maybe it was Stephen, Biden can't do this unilaterally. He can't solve the climate emergency by himself. Americans need to demand that their elected officials pass comprehensive climate legislation that's going to reduce CO2 and methane emissions to zero and quickly.
Thank you. I'm Bob Grove, and we're talking about the state of US climate policy. When we return, we're going to talk about where the US needs to go from here.